Good morning, everyone. This is Al coming to you once again for Kindred Souls of Brooklyn, and I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. So today, folks, I want to jump right into it. I want to do a little tribute to the Welcome Back Kotter show, and of course, that show was set in Brooklyn, and this is going to be a video all about Welcome Back Kotter and the Brooklyn connection, and a lot of interesting facts about the Welcome Back Kotter show. So you're in for a real treat, folks. Stay tuned. Welcome Back Kotter coming up at you. So first off, if you remember, the show aired from 1975 up until 1979, and it actually takes place in Brooklyn. Now, the high school that you see in the opening shot of Welcome Back Kotter was, of course, New Utrecht High School, which is still there today. New Utrecht High School opened up in 1924, and obviously in Welcome Back Kotter, it was highlighted. It was in Welcome Back Kotter. It was called James Buchanan High School, but that was actually New Utrecht High School, which is on 80th Street and 16th Avenue. You know, it's funny, folks. The two best shows I think that were ever set in Brooklyn are actually set in Bensonhurst. Everyone's going to say they know the first one I'm talking about, which is The Honeymooners. But for me personally, it was Welcome Back Kotter, and a lot of Welcome Back Kotter was based on the humor of Gabe Kaplan, but the way that the Sweathogs got their names was that obviously in the show, the Sweathogs were remedial students. So the reason why they were called Sweathogs was because the remedial classes were given on the top floor of the high school, and of course there was no air conditioning up there. So that's how the name Sweathogs came about, from not being air conditioned, and Sweathogs came about just like that. And what's also incredible, folks, is that the song Welcome Back, obviously it's about Mr. Kotter. You know, Mr. Kotter was a student at James Buchanan, and then he pretty much got out of there and he became a teacher, and he decided to come back to teach in the school. And if you remember the lyrics of the song, the lyrics were, "Welcome back, your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about." So essentially, you know, his dreams got him out of there, and what it says in the song was basically the dreams turned around, where he realized that he wanted to help the students, and that's why he went back to teach over there. So a little more interesting facts about Brooklyn and about the opening scenes and closing scenes. I bet a lot of you folks don't know, if you think about the scene at the end of Welcome Back Kotter, you know, when they give the credits and stuff at the end, there was a bus, and there's kids walking and getting onto a bus. Well, I did a lot of research on this, and I realized that the bus that they're getting on, and the school that's right there, it's actually Bishop Kearny High School, which is on Bay Parkway and 60th Street. So if you look at that bus and you look closely, you'll notice that the girls going on the bus are, they've got gray skirts on, and those were the Bishop Kearny colors back in those days. So that was filmed right there on 60th Street and Bay Parkway. Now, another interesting thing about that particular thing was, you'll see a girl is walking, and on the back of the girl's jacket, you see Cobb Cheerleading. Now, Cobb was an organization in Brooklyn, much like the Youth Services and the Bonnies, and it was basically a non-for-profit youth team, and they did basketball and they did baseball. So the cheerleading part was for the basketball. Now, unfortunately, Cobb went out of business, I think, in the 80s. It ran out of funding. But a lot of memories there, because I know Youth Services was still around up until about 15, 16 years ago, because my nephew Thomas played baseball for Youth Services. So I know that organization was still around. But as I say, sadly, the Cobb group went out of business. So now I want to talk about the show, and let's stay on this topic as far as what scenes you see actually coming and going in those credits. What's really interesting, folks, is when Welcome Back Kotter starts, you see James Buchanan High School, which is really New Utrecht High School. And then another interesting thing is they show 86th Street and about Bay Parkway. Now, if you remember, of course, John Travolta was in this show, and this was actually filmed probably in 1974, 75, early part of those years, way before John Travolta was in Saturday Night Fever, which came out in 1977. And isn't it ironic that it was showing that scene of Brooklyn, that famous strip, and only a couple of years later, John Travolta would make history walking down that strip doing the Travolta strut to Staying Alive. Some other interesting things about the footage in the early part of the show was that the sign, "Welcome to Brooklyn," fourth largest city in America, that particular sign is right under the Verrazano Bridge. If you're coming off the Verrazano Bridge, it's the Belt Parkway going east. It will be Belt Parkway going toward Long Island. So that's exactly where that sign is. I'm not sure if Brooklyn is still the fourth largest city. It's got to be up there somewhere, but I believe the guy who was the borough president at the time, I think his name was Sebastian Leone, he actually got a lot of notoriety because so many people watched the show growing up. And I know for me, folks, I guess because I was right about ready to go into high school at that time, in 1979 when the show ended. So it was really, for me, this show resonated with me more than The Honeymooners did because I wasn't married at that time and all that. And I found the show was really great. And what I really thought was interesting about the show, now looking back on it, was that the show was far, far ahead of its curve. I mean, if you think about the cast of characters, and I'm going to talk about each character individually, you think about the cast of characters that were in that show, it was very diversified. For 1975, I mean, think about it. You had Juan Epstein, who was Puerto Rican and Jewish. You had Boom Boom Washington, who was black. You had Ron Palillo, who played Horshack, who, even though they didn't say he was alternative lifestyle in the show, it was pretty much implied. And an interesting fact was that once the show ended, Ron Palillo actually did come out of the closet. So you had that going on. And then you had Vinnie Barbarino, who was an Irish Catholic guy. And you had this tremendous melting pot of kids who were together. And they all accepted each other. It was, they never really ranked on each other for what background they came from. I mean, it was clear where they came from, but they all got along. They were all sweathogs. So I think the show was really, really ahead of the curve. And it really showed a real Brooklyn, because I know for me growing up in Brooklyn, and I know this might sound politically correct in this day and age, but I had friends of every race, every creed. I bowled in Diplomat Lanes when I was growing up on Flatbush Avenue, and I started bowling there when I was 8 years old. And I learned from a very young age that diversity was just pretty much where it was at. I had friends, of every race, every creed. It was just, that was probably one of the most enlightening experiences of my life, was actually bowling in that league, because I saw the real Brooklyn. I saw really what it was to be in a diverse environment, and I think it truly shaped me as an individual later on. So like I said, folks, I think that show was tremendously ahead of its curve. Just talk about the cast a little bit. John Travolta, Vinnie Barbarino. I mean, what can we say about John Travolta? I mean, the guy was actually at his peak during the show. A lot of people really thought that he left the show. He tried to get out of his contract when he got really big, but he pretty much lived up to his contract. It's hard to believe he was making only $2,000 an episode during that time. But a lot of people don't realize that during that show, he was at the peak of his career, and he actually made 5 different movies. He made the movie Carrie. He was in that. And then he made the movie Boy in the Plastic Bubble. He made the movie Moment by Moment. He also made Saturday Night Fever. And then, of course, he made the movie Grease. So at a particular time, he was up for an Academy Award for Saturday Night Fever. He had the #1 musical, or music on the charts, with Grease, the #1 movie in the country, and he had so much going on. And that was pretty much the peak of his career. And after he left Welcome Back, Kotter, I think he played an urban cowboy, but his career kind of went into a bit of a decline. And he made the movie Blowout, I think, in 1981. And it wasn't pretty much until Pulp Fiction in 95 that his career kind of got resurrected. But like I said, what can you say about John Travolta? John, if you're watching this, condolences. I know your wife just passed away. To me, I think you're a real, true Brooklyn icon. I really think there should be a statue of you right underneath the Brooklyn Bridge on that famous bench, Tony's bench. If anyone's interested, I have done a video on that. So anyway, that's John Travolta. The next guy I want to talk about is probably Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, who played Boom Boom Washington. He was probably the most popular guy going into the Welcome Back series. He had been in a few movies. Right before Welcome Back, Kotter, he was in the movie Cooley High, which was a really popular movie. And a lot of people don't realize, it's hard to imagine Boom Boom Washington as a bad guy. But In the 1973 movie Death Wish with Charles Bronson, Boom Boom Washington played one of the muggers who actually tried to mug Charles Bronson before he shot him. They were in the scene in Central Park, and Charles Bronson is on the steps, and there's a guy up on top, and then there's two guys on the bottom, and Boom Boom Washington was one of those guys on the bottom, kind of trapping Charles Bronson. And the funny saying that he has for Charles Bronson, because Charles Bronson's kind of stuck right in the middle, he says to him, "Come on down with the money, honey." And then all of a sudden, that's when Charles Bronson kind of opened fires. So that's Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Talking about Robert Hedges. Sadly, Robert Hedges left us in 2012. He was only in his 60s. He had a heart attack at home, and he left us in 2012. But Robert Hedges was he was in a few different things over the years, a few TV shows. But he played obviously played Juan Epstein, Puerto Rican and Jewish. What a combination, right? The next guy, Ron Palillo, was like I said, he actually came out of the closet after the show. But Ron Palillo sadly also left us in 2012. He also took a heart attack at his home. But Ron Palillo was the oldest guy out of all the Sweathogs. In fact, it was funny because when the show was going on, all of those guys were in their 20s. And when the show ended, Ron Palillo was actually 29 years old. And after the third season, Gabe Kaplan had actually left the show, and they pretty much wrote him out of the show. And one of his disputes about that show was that he thought the guys were getting too old, and he wanted to change the show around and make it kind of like that they were all in college, that he was in like a JUCO college or something like that. But the producer said no to it. Talking about Gabriel Kaplan, I mean, we don't. Well, let's talk about him for just a quick second. Gabriel Kaplan's still alive. He became a famous. He was probably one of the first celebrities to become a professional gambler. He also went into finances. So Gabe is still alive. He was like I said, a lot of the things that were taken for the show, like up your nose with a rubber hose, and a lot of the sayings from the show were actually taken from his nightclub act. Actually, it wasn't really up your nose with a rubber hose, which was the Barbarino saying. It was actually up your hole with a jelly roll, something like that. They actually cleaned up some of the sayings, but a lot of those things originated from Gabriel Kaplan's night act. Which brings me to the last person I want to talk about, which is actually the next to last person, Marcia Strassman, who played Gabriel Kaplan's wife, Julie. An interesting footnote about Julie, she was very, very unhappy on the show, and sadly, she actually left, she's actually passed away as well. I believe she passed away in 2008, but Marcia Strassman was very, very unhappy on the show. She thought she wasn't given enough time on the show. She didn't get along with Gabriel Kaplan. There was a lot of issues on the show, and oddly, she actually was probably remembered most for being Julie on that show, and she was also on the show MASH. I'll pop a picture up. She actually played one of the nurses in MASH, but one of the reasons why she was so unhappy on the show, little known fact, was that Farrah Fawcett was actually did a test to be Gabriel Kaplan's wife in Welcome Back, Kotter. And obviously we all know how famous Farrah Fawcett was. She later became one of Charlie's Angels. She had that famous pinup that everyone knows about. But the reason why, oddly enough, that Farrah Fawcett wasn't given that role as Gabriel Kaplan's wife was that the producers thought she was too pretty to be believable to be Gabriel Kaplan's wife. So along the way, one of the producers told Marcia Strassman when she got that role was that, hey, well, Farrah Fawcett actually tried for this role, and we didn't put her in there because we thought she was too pretty to be Gabriel Kaplan's wife. Well, she didn't take to that too well. It was like, what are you trying to say? I'm not pretty, whatever. And that was a tremendous sore point for her throughout the filming of Welcome Back, Kotter. So that's just a little footnote on her. Well, like I say, folks, just a tremendous show. I hope you enjoyed those facts about the show. I researched it for a while, and I know they're factual and they're true. And like I said, I really enjoyed the show. And, when the show ended, Gabriel Kaplan, the fourth season pretty much wasn't that good. Oh, before I forget, I want to talk about one more character. I almost forgot about this. Stephen Fleischer, who played Killer Carvelli in the show, he actually is still alive, and he did a lot of different shows. But One thing he's super famous for, which a lot of people never put him to, is he was a voice actor. And the most famous voice he actually voiced was Roger Rabbit. And I'll pop a picture up there of Roger Rabbit and Fleischer. If you don't remember what he looked like, he played Killer Carvelli, and he was always the guy who was like instigating the Sweathogs and telling them they were dumb, and he was always kind of a foil for the Sweathogs, and he was always with this guy named Murray. But thought that was really interesting to put that in there as well. So folks, I know this was pretty much a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. It was a wonderful show. It was part of my childhood, I guess part of your childhood too. Thank you for staying tuned from the end till the end of the video. I really appreciate it. Folks, by staying tuned to the video and by watching these videos, you're actually doing a tremendously noble deed. You're actually helping suicide prevention. We're going to be starting a foundation really soon. Sadly, we lost my son to that last August. He made a really bad decision. We think he was actually drunk at the time, not to go into that, but we are starting a foundation. It's going to be called the Waffles Foundation. For Matt was 27 when he left us. This foundation is going to be for suicide prevention. So anybody who subscribes to the channel, anybody who watches the videos, all the money that I make from the YouTube channel is going to be going toward the foundation. We are currently, today's date is August 3rd, 2020. We are waiting for our 501c accreditation. The paperwork is in. We are waiting for that. As soon as we get that, we are going to be starting up the foundation. The goal of the foundation is going to be suicide prevention, and also the distribution of musical instruments to kids and anybody in need who cannot afford a musical instrument or lessons. We're going to pair them up, and we're going to hopefully do some good. We're going to do some percussion for prevention. Folks, please, you can look us up on YouTube. It's Kindred Souls of Brooklyn that you're watching. You could also go on to Facebook. I have a page there called the Waffles Foundation. If you please like that page. We have a lot of great people working with us. Way too many to name, folks. A lot of great people. We're going to need a lot of help going on down the road. So if you're a teacher or you're a musician or you want to donate a musical instrument, you can contact me at wafflesfoundation@gmail.com. And just by subscribing to the channel, just by watching the videos, there's someone in the country, folks, every 40 seconds who commits suicide. So we want to try to help put a dent in that and make things better. So folks, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on Welcome Back, Kotter. I appreciate you watching. And this is Al signing off. We're supposed to be getting a tropical storm today in sunny Florida. So going to go home now, get some rest after doing a grave shift. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care of you, folks. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And I'll see you real soon. Take care now, folks. Bye-bye.